See you now.
All right. Okay.
And so on.
Okay.
Fine.
Great stuff. Thank you. All right, guys. Sorry about that hiccup. That was definitely on the Twitch side. I have no error reports on my side. I don't really pretty much care right now. I'm just glad we are here and then we can start. So, just to recap, we're going to do a test flight to see the influence of this training circuit on my system compared to the other three that we were looking at earlier. And we are at Porto and we're going to do the normal test flight. So I'm going to talk you through setting up everything, but before we start, I just want to see I mean, if Scott is inviting other people, we might just want to wait a minute or two before we actually get going.
You might just go ahead. I'm not even seeing the invite in the announcements, so I apologize for that.
Okay. Can you see that person on another server anyway? Can you right click on his name and use the invite to the server to the Skymatic
It's not
Zibo?
in the announcement section. It's in the one underneath called Discord invite, Scott.
Yeah.
I'll take a look, but don't let me hold you up. Carry on because you're recording, so they can always look at it again.
All right. Okay. Right. Right, so I'm going to start from the very beginning. So I'm going to start with the whole flight plan, the whole story, and then we're going to systematically work through it. I'll go as fast as I can. We're not going to waste time on it. So the first thing I want to do is just check this wind that we actually are on the right path here. Right. So the wind is actually not in favor of runway 35, but it's 7 knots. I'm going to stick to runway 35 to make sure we do the same test. Okay, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. LPPR, LPPR. I'm going to take runway 35, and this was the Manic 1 West, eh? Departure that you guys took on the arrivals. Able to Tango. Nope, that's not the right one. 5 Charlie, yes, that's the right one. And we're going to do the RNAV 35. All right, so that is the circuit that we are going to do. I'm going to export that to my explain so that I don't have to worry about it. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to save the charts just for easy reference, pin them. All right, we don't need that one. All right, so this is the departure. We have to be above 3,000 at the first waypoint there, then 4,000, then 7,000, then 10,000 once we get to Manic. All right. As a matter of interest, if you know the semicircular rule, you'll know that if you fly east and west, you've got to be at different altitudes. West is evens and east is odds. In Portugal, for instance, it works a little bit different. You have to work north-south. So if you're flying down south, it's odds, and if you're flying up north, it's evens, if my memory serves me correct. Just a FYI, remember that. And then the big thing is now the altitude we were supposed to be above was 10,000 at that point, but at this one it's 11. So you can be at 11 or above. I know you guys were flying at 16. Do you want me to also use 16, or is it good enough if I just use my 11? What's your feeling?
I think 16 or 11, it really doesn't matter because it did keep us on profile the whole way down to where we should be. So up to you, sir.
All right, okay, I'm just going to stick to 11 then. That's just going to give us a little bit more breathing space. All right. Otherwise, it's up, down, and it happens very fast.
Might we want to just up it a bit so that you're above the ab leg? 11,000.
Okay, we'll go to 13. Okay, we'll go to
Yeah,
13 then. But I
so
don't want to
that
go.
you got the top of descent. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it will give me the top of descent. Zibo fix that. So even if I fly 11, it will give me top of descent back. So then we need to come down. We need to be above 6,000. There we need to be above 4,000. And once we go over here, we need to be at PR 542. There, we need to be at 3,000 to intercept. We're going to use the Ian. We're not going to use LPV and stuff. So LNAV, VNAV with Ian. And we'll use the approach button there at 3,000 to intercept. All right. So that in a nutshell is what we are going to do.
Jordan,
Yes, sir.
can you look at your personal message?
I did get it, yeah. Let's dip down a channel. I'll get you sorted.
Scott,
Sir.
are you familiar with Sim Toolkit Pro at all or not?
Uh, yes, and the guys did help me with it, and we used it.
Okay, all right. I just don't want you to get lost. Because that page I was just on is the interface page with SimBrief. So whether you do that in SimBrief or you do it in Sim Toolkit Pro, it's the same thing.
Torsten did make one reference that's probably important. If you're using a nickname and you're flying that's different than your sky, your sim tool brief or your sim brief login, make sure
Yeah.
that it matches or you
Yes.
won't get a flight plan.
Correct. Yeah. You have to set it up correctly. All right.
That
So
was Jordan.
okay, cool. This is basically what we need now. We've got the weather, we've got the OFP. So what I'm going to do is let's start setting up the aircraft. We move over that way. We can start setting up better pushback. Replan. Sorry, guys. My hands are now full. I'm just going to quickly do this one thing.
Ground to cockpit. Plan acknowledged. Call me through the menu when you're ready.
All right. Okay. So what I need to do now is just going to open the doors just for effect, and then we can also just quickly call in the ground guys. Hello, Steel. Hello. Yes, it has a dark theme now. I'm not sure if you can actually change it to a bright theme. I'm not sure. Dan worked on it a little bit. I'm quite impressed with the way it looks now. So we'll find out about all the other things if you figure out how to change it to a day theme again. Just tell us. But anyway, okay. So that takes care of all of that. Let's connect the GPU. And let's go load our aircraft. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to look for weights. That's weights over there. We're going to use the payload as 18.5. And the fuel that we have is 5. Alright, so let's get this truck going. And we're just going to hide this. Okay. Battery, ground power, we want the emergency exit lights so we can legally start loading packs. Nav lights go on so that we tell everybody there's a qualified pilot on board. Still, Uncle John is not here, but yeah, good morning to you and everybody else. Right, then as usual, I'm just going to run through all my lights just to get the ambience correct. Let's quickly go for the IRSs as well. 7 minutes to alignment, so we've got some time to kill. Guys, if I go too quick, Scott, anybody else, if I go too fast, just tell me to slow down. Okay, I don't want to lose anybody. I'll rather go slower or repeat something 2 times or 3 times and make sure that all of you guys are on the same page. Okay. All right. Right, we always take GPS left. For anybody else watching this video later, we don't use the airport reference. You're going to get IRS drift and all kinds of other errors. You have to use GPS left. Route, I'm going to do the import. So it's LPPR, LPPR. I exported that from Navigraph earlier. That will also show you guys the error Mac was referring to, and then we can address that same time. SK. M810, and the moment we activate and execute, you're going to see number one, we are short of a runway. We need to go to the departure. We need to go and cycle that runway. In other words, deselect it, select it again, and execute it. All right. If you go back to the route page, you see now the runway is filled in. That's a little trick that we have to do at this point in time. Okay, then the next thing that we want to do is we want to go set up the arrival. On the arrival page, you'll see the star is selected, but RNAV and the transition Aquilo is not. So you have to select it and execute. Now we can go to the legs page and actually step through on the plan page. So now we can step through and check that we have everything that we need and that there are no discontinuities. As easy as that. Alright, while I am here, let's quickly check the QNH 1014. So that is now set. And then we can continue. Route page, preferences, zero fuel weight, let's see. The zero fuel weight is 61.6. Now while we are on this subject, I want to quickly take you to this page. It is imperative, if you are like me and you want the numbers to actually match, you need to start on this page, and you can clearly see there's a problem. So what we do is we go to the 189 PAX 1. You can use 160, but then it works a little, the CG will sit in a different place. Okay. But all of the models need to have 79, 79, and 79 per passenger. All right. If you do not put 79 in here, it will not balance with your figures that you get from SimBrief. SimBrief uses 104 kilograms. That includes 79 for the passenger and 25 kilograms for baggage. All right. And the baggage, it's like a hidden calculation. It's a hidden value that we know of that we need to take into account. Okay, and then depending on the rounding that SimBrief does, you guys have to just change this galley at the back. I see between 440 and 450, 440 and 450, it's going to be either one of them that you need to set up, and then you need to go and save it. Right. If you do not have these values correct, you're going to find that your OFP is not going to balance. It's going to be out by 100 or 200 or 300 kilograms. So that's very important to get right. Now, because we've changed it, we just need to go and fix this. And our payload was 18.5. All right, so that in conjunction with that should now give us the correct values. So if we go, where's SDKP? Sorry, let me get it back there. Our zero fuel weight, as you can see there, is 61.6, so it is now in balance. And once the fuel is fully loaded, we will be able to get the correct takeoff weight within 100 kilograms. What typically happens is on STKP, then the OFP from SimBrief, you'll see 66.4. So the gross weight in the aircraft will typically be 100 kilograms more, because your takeoff weight is measured at the runway threshold, while the current weight includes the taxi fuel. So you'll always have 100 or 200 kilograms more in the aircraft while you are at the gate, because it needs to burn that to get to the runway, to get to the takeoff weight. So just always remember that. Our reserves, I'm going to use a silly amount because we're not going to fly anywhere. I just want something in there. We said we're going to use a cost index of 6, and we said we're going to fly flight level 130. There's our warning about the steep descent, and trust me, it does happen. Then we're going to scroll up to the top. Your average winds today is 248 at 20. And the ISA average deviation is 8 degrees. And we are just going to have to double check that that's done. I think that's done. Let's just make sure. So we're looking at 66.4. So there's 200 kilograms extra when we have the correct zero fuel weight and the correct fuel, which is perfectly fine. We're going to say execute. All right. So just to recap, that 0.6 and the 0.4, the difference is taxi fuel, guys. You have to have a little bit more here. You're welcome, Krister. Right, then I was telling you guys earlier about the rule of thumb. So if you take 19 times 2, that's going to be 38. And that's a generalized just rule of thumb thing. Okay, and remember the limits are, it has to be more than 30 on the SEL and below 60. All right, and then by using the rule of thumb, you can then manipulate your thrust depending on the runway length and the obstacle clearance that you need to get. In our instance here, we can do a takeoff 2. We don't need to rush, and we because it's a short flight, we want to climb really fast. Okay, so we don't want to waste time. This will determine the rate of climb. Okay, that's fast, little bit less, and a very slow climb basically. All right, so 90, don't go below 90 unless you do a noise abatement takeoff. I can show you that as well in the next screen. That will take it down to the 80s, but don't go below this, especially if you're going to use a short runway. You're going to end up in the sticks. All right, so I'm using this because of experience. All right, so we're going to put flaps 5. Then what we want to do. Okay, I'm throwing this in, Scott, just to show you, to elaborate a little bit more, and let me explain what happens. By default, Zibo wrote the code in the mod to give you a stable and, in other words, a good takeoff CG. By default, it will give you a good takeoff CG. But what we want is actually a better or a good landing CG. So you can leave it as is, no worries. I mean, this aircraft will fly, it will perform beautifully. But if you want to take it one step further, you need to read your landing weight CG. It's currently at 18.9. I hope you guys can see that. It says 18.9. So our best performance on the landing weight CG will be 21.5. Being at 18, it means we are nose heavy and we need to put a little bit of our load to the back. All right, so there's an imaginary line coming from the top to the bottom, somewhere there. I mean, I can't draw a straight line to save my life here, but there's an imaginary line there, and everything on the left is the nose, and everything on the back, on the right hand side, that's the back. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to go to this side, and what I have found in the configuration, the way I fly it, is 500 kilograms usually does the trick. So if we use, no, I can't remember, 1011, I'm talking too much, right? So we've taken 500 kilograms from the front and we have to put it in the back. So we have 2558, and we need to make sure that our payload total is still what the OFP says. Don't go change that. You have to balance this out to be the same total. And there you can see we now have 21.7. All right. So I'm not going to fiddle with that. That's close enough to 21.5. It's really a good value. I'm just going to leave it. At this time, we can now go and set the CG. All right. So we click the button. It gives us our trim, and then we get our V speeds. Alright, there's one extra step. If you have to do a noise abatement departure, you can do a cut-off, or a cutback, sorry, a cutback takeoff. Alright, this is going to reduce your thrust to 83.3. So I'm going to use this just to illustrate to you how it works. While I'm also thinking about it, okay, let's just go back to the preferences, N1 limit. Alright, so our ordinary thrust would have been 90.7. Alright, it's now going to cut back to 83.3. You'll see how it works, how it performs. What's going to happen is it will reduce it at 1,000 feet. So it will be at 90%, 90.7. At 1,000 feet, it will reduce to 83.3. And at 3,000, it will restore itself to climb thrust. Okay, so you must have a look out for that. Hello, Mac. Good afternoon. Then there's one other thing. Scott, you with me?
Yeah, and I think it's it's not raining anymore. Okay, yeah, got you.
Sorry, what did you mean by that? You lost me completely.
It was raining earlier, but it seems to have stopped,
Oh,
and I
yeah,
saw you
yeah.
had dry on that.
Yeah. We can change the wetness if we really wanted to, but it is not raining anymore. Okay, one thing I want to quickly mention here is in the settings for you new guys. I need to just find it now. Oh my soul, all these settings are wrong. I have to start from the beginning. Let me just set up my aircraft quickly to be correct the way I fly it, because otherwise it's going to irritate me. Wing lights blended, SATCOM, can put it in the rear. Alright, landing pulse light, no, halogen LED, that's fine, we can use the HUD. We want the circle array. Yes sir, Mac, it's going well, and I'm helping the guys here with some training, so it's going even better. Right, we want the multi-mode receiver. If you guys want to fly EGNOS, WAS, GLS, you need to switch on multi-mode receiver. This is the aspirated TAT probe. Alright, if you change that now, we're going to have to go change the OAT and things like that. So I'm just going to leave that, but next time I'll change that for myself. Right, there's a difference, and Zibo actually incorporates it in the mod between the way the call-outs work for an RNP versus an ILS approach, and that's why it's smart. So the mod actually will do the call-outs a little bit differently. If you guys want to put it on smart, you're more than welcome. All right, I like the white. Ground power cable is auto. That's all good, Tikas. All right, that's fine. INET reference button. Alright. Remember you were talking earlier, Scott, about you pressed the INET reference and it took you to the wrong page.
Correct.
Okay. This INET reference button smart. This is a setting that you can try. If yours is on yes, put it on no. If it's on no, put it on yes. Alright, because it depends on the firmware that's actually loaded in the Boeing, and there are so many different variations, but Zibo gives us two. So the one will do the one thing and the one will do the other thing, and it's in this particular setting over here that you can change the behavior. All right. Then FO call outs, we can say yes because Linda's not here. VNAV alt, all those things is perfect. Parking brakes, remove chocks is off. Engage, start the lock. Yeah, got those center planners. Okay, that's all fine. That's all fine. Realism. Yeah, I'm gonna put that on short for now if we need to put more in. Alright, tire blow in advance. For some people this works really well. Other people, what it does is the moment you start moving the aircraft, it actually simulates the parking brake on, and you can't switch it off, and then the aircraft doesn't want to move again. So for me, tire blow in advance is always off. Alright, if I move my yoke, it mustn't do anything, so that should be off. Parking brake set to simply. I use simply because of Linda. Linda cannot step on the toe brake, so that is a problem. If you guys have Linda, make sure you put your parking brake to simply. Okay, FMC input lag, it's more real. Alright, then. For the new guys, this is a very important setting. AP yoke neutral, what's the correct English word? The
Tolerance.
tolerance, yes. Okay, so what happens is, let me quickly move over to the PFD. That square box is the aircraft nose. All right. Once you have your flight directors on, I'm not sure if it's going to show it does now. No, we're going to have to finish the whole story first. Okay. So what happens is your crosshair will appear there in magenta, right? Now, usually, and in the real aircraft, you have to be pretty darn close to the actual center of that cross. And then you'll be able to switch on Command A, your autopilot. What this setting does is it increases the tolerance. So for the new pilots, please set this to simply, because instead of having a very small circle to operate in, you're now going to have a really large circle to operate in, and the autopilot will still engage. All right, so that's just a tip for the new guys. I'm going to keep mine on real, but you guys need to seriously look at that. Then windshield effects is on, reflections gauge, hardware throttles. All right, hardware throttles on the ACAS. Okay, it's not showing. It should put a little triangle, a blue triangle on the outer rim of that semicircle there. All right, and it helps a lot for the new guys, especially anybody. I still benefit from it. I balance my throttles before I disconnect my auto throttle, so I put the two little blue triangles, on the N1 line, so that when I disconnect auto throttle, I don't have a sudden surge or a reduction in power. So that's very important. In actual fact, the hardware throttle on the ACAS. Then strobe effect and show backs, that's fine. Okay, the next thing for the new guys, I'm actually going to switch this on, Scott, so you can actually see the operation. Flight director helper for the new guys is very good to go on. So what's going to happen is that crosshair, if you are outside of the tolerance where the autopilot will not work, it's going to flash in I think it's a yellow or an orangey color. You'll see it changes color. And depending on whether you are laterally or vertically on an offset where you cannot get the autopilot to engage, that one or both of the flight director bars will actually flash. And all you do is you fly towards the one that is flashing. I'll give you a little demonstration as we go up. Okay, so for the new guys, very important. That's the way you start and practice. And then once you are happy and you can get it right, just go switch it off, if you don't want it anymore. General config. I'm going to leave this as is. Alright. Alright, let's go and save this. Alright, make sure it's okay. Alright, so I'm going to start my flight leg, and then the little pageant will start, and you will actually hear all the talk and the people getting in and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to switch off a couple of things. I'm going to start preparing the rest of the system. Going to start the APU.
Engine minor, we cannot leave the gate until Pier 9 are properly put away. All overhead bins are closed and all passengers are seated.
200. Get to 50. APU goes on. And like I said earlier to you guys, I'm just switching on the electrical hydraulics as well. Then I know it's all on. Get my perspective right. Because APU is running, we can start the pressurization system and then we can go close our doors. Alright, I just had to increase my sound a little bit there. Alright, then we can disconnect the GPU. We can actually call the tug and tell the ground guys to leave us. Scott, are you okay? Are you following?
I'm here.
Alright, okay. I'm not going too fast for you, eh?
No, sir.
Okay. Alright, let's do the rest of the setup then. We're going to input our 146 flight directors. This is 350.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed.
Let's just see what the actual Navigraph tells us. Yeah, 352 RTO 13, and we are. Alright, the reason why I arm it, and I know they told you this as well earlier, but for the rest of the guys, the reason I arm it is to make sure that I didn't forget to activate one of the pages in the FMC, and that I didn't forget to activate both of the flight directors. If those lights don't come on, you need to troubleshoot before you take off, because to troubleshoot after takeoff is just a waste of time. You don't want that extra stress on you, so that's why we arm them. They're not active, they're just armed, and we get the green light and we feel better about the whole situation. Right, so beacon light on, fuel pumps on, packs off, otherwise we will not be able to start
Boarding is now complete. Flight attendants prepare the cabins.
the
Verify armed doors,
engines.
standby for all call.
All right, we've got everyone strapped in. Give us a ring if you need anything.
Right, before we go, I just want to quickly mention something to you. When you do an RNAV or RNP approach of any sorts, please don't have the ILS active. You can put anything else in there. While we know that there is a VOR, I'm in fact going to just program the VOR for this airport. Selected the wrong 1141. No, I didn't notice it went through. Thanks, donkey rain. Alright. Okay, so 1141, 1141. So that has got no bearing on our RNAV approach. It is simply there as a reference. So if we really wanted to, we can go and enable that and set up, some reference point for ourselves. There, 352. 352. Alright, so that will just give us a bit of a, like a leader line or whatever on that radial line there. Right, so that takes care of everything that I think I need to do right now. Gentlemen, if you notice anything wrong, shout now or forever hold your peace. Are you guys happy? Can we go?
Yes, Nico.
Yes, sir.
Alright, so let's go.
Starting pushback. You may start the engine.
Right, so we're going to wait for 25% on the N2 and then we're simply going to inject the fuel.
And now I'm directly lined up with the runway on this approach, Nico.
Ha!
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect.
And you say you updated your nav data.
Yeah, to the 11.5 for my
Okay.
X-plane.
Alright.
Guess I need to reload my data.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
You're moving.
I'm pushing.
Yeah, that's the next thing you need to take care of, Scott.
Yeah, better push back, right?
Mm.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Such an incredible sim, though.
Oh yeah.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Okay, brakes are set. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put my generators on for the engines, go to continuous. Then we're going to switch on the probe heats and then we're gonna do the pressurization, kill the APU bleed. Oh, and then the APU. Right, so I'm just checking that we've got some volts and amps going there. Now you can see APU is off and you can also see ground power is not available. Right, we'll leave it at that. Okay, so at this point in time, flaps 5.
Tow is disconnected and bypass pin has been removed. Hand signal on the right. We'll see you next time and have a safe flight.
Thank you, sir. Alright, then I'm going to check the actual flight controls, make sure they work. We don't want a nasty surprise. Right, once we get the pin, we can switch on our taxi lights and we can go. Alright, thank you very much. So transponder can come on. Taxi lights on. Let's go. Guys, so when I get to the end of the taxiway there by the threshold, I'm just going to save a flight quickly so you guys can also see the functionality of saving the flight. You know, and if you then want to come and practice, you can then use your safe flight situations to actually put you in the appropriate place where you want to be. Right, so landing lights, taxi lights, nav lights.
Flight attendants prepare for takeoff, please.
That's the queue. Weather radar on.
Cheers. Have a good flight.
Right, so we're going to check flaps. We've got flaps 5 green light. Weather radar is on, TARA is on, so we are squawking Charlie, runway turn off lights, back signs, pressurization, auto. Alright, and as a matter of interest there, you can also see the green lights of the flaps. They are all in the appropriate position. LNAV, VNAV are both armed, so that is normal operation. RTO is fine, and we have also checked our speed brake is okay. Then, if we move this throttle forward and there's no alarm, we know we are ready for takeoff. Hello pilots, hey, good morning from Oklahoma.
Approaching 3-5.
Right, once I get on the runway, we'll quickly save the flight. Sorry, somebody wanted to say something?
On runway 3-5.
Do with ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. Right, so while we are here, we can now go to save and load the flight. So I'm going to click save the flight. Just make sure it's done. Right, so that is the first flight situation that we can save. Everything is fine. We're going to push it now to just over 40% in one and in Toga.
Which you can do using the mic button.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't have it mapped, press that button. That mic button is the Toga. Thank you for the reminder, Torsten.
No problem.
Right, I can feel this wind is working me a little bit, yeah. E1 and rotate. Alright, never more than 10 degrees until you are clear of that runway. You don't want the tail strike. We go gear up. Alright, now you should see the bar is now flashing. Do you see that? The vertical bar there. So what we need to do is we need to fly towards it. Once we are in the tolerance for the autopilot to switch on, you'll see it stop flashing. So what we're going to do is I'm now going to pull up, and then you'll see the horizontal bar is now flashing. And all you do is you fly towards it. And once you are close enough to the middle, you switch on Command A. I've got a key mapped, or a joystick button map as such. That is Command A. That's how you switch your autopilot on, that button over there. Right, then we go gear off, RTO off, and we just let the aircraft climb. And you know what? I just noticed we're on flaps 2, not flaps 5. I made a mistake there. Don't do that. It's wrong. Sorry, guys. That is now an honest mistake. When we replay, we'll fix that. It needs to be on flaps 5 for takeoff. I saw the green lights and I never read the actual number. Just shows you, eh? So quick to make a mistake.
That's what comes of flying with that Linda.
Yeah, she would have moaned.
You're forgiven.
Thank you very much.
We can't see the numbers anyway. Very good, Nico.
Yeah, you have to zoom in a little bit. But this is a rookie mistake, man. I never make a mistake like this. I was really good up there. Alright, so once we go through transition, we just hit the standard button over there. And the aircraft's well on its way to climb. Pilots, you will only find that button if the Zibo mod is active. So you need to go start your Zibo mod, put it somewhere safe, and then you need to go find Command A. If you stick around after the stream is done, before I close, just remind me, I'll show you quickly. The alternative is go read my Zibo mod install guide. I did show it in there as well. Alright, so now we're just waiting for 10,000 feet for the next phase. Right, so at this point in time we can go lights off and we put the engine start switches to auto and we can release the passengers. Make sure we don't have any warning lights and we're okay. Nicely above the clouds. Once we turn steady on our cruise altitude, I'll just save another instance of the flight. Yes, sir, you got to do what you got to do, eh? We were talking about John Wayne, Orange County earlier today as well. I mean, I go so far as to use flaps 10 and then I use engine bleed off takeoff so that I've got enough oomph to get off that runway because it's freaking short. But yeah, depending on how heavy you are and how short that runway is, that's good practice. I know you're on. I know you were a real pilot, but I'm just mentioning these things for the other guys. All right. So once we reach the cruise altitude, I'm just going to save the next flight. Flight number 2 is saved. Alright, so let's quickly talk about the descent preparation and things. Under normal circumstances, if you're going to fly a longer distance, I'm going to try and fit it in quickly anyway, but if you fly a longer distance, and especially now with the Zibo mod in the new version that I'm flying, the descent forecast page has all of a sudden become very important. It is extremely important to add the QNH, all right, and to get the correct transition level. If you have the wrong QNH, the descent path can go wonky. So what we're going to check, the transition level is 4,000. We've taken off from the same airport. It's not going to change, but you have to check that. Then what we're going to do is here we get the ISA deviation. And you don't need a deviation, by the way. You can simply start by / and then pick up on the QNH or altimeter setting. So it's 1014, and you have to put that in. And you have to do this before the descent happens, guys. Then we are too low to really worry about the winds. I'm not even going to worry about that. We're going to execute that. These are the two minimum things we need to do. If you go to some brief, you'll see if you look at the winds, you have 200, 150 and 100. So maybe we can put 100 in there at least. All right, and then we can put 251 at 23. So we've at least got one set of winds to contend with, but that's not as important as the QNH. The QNH and transition level is very important. Then we're going to quickly go back. I'm not going to worry about calculating the fuel and stuff too much because it's a short flight, but in case you were wondering, what you can do is you take 4.2, the closest waypoint, and if you guys look, let me just quickly zoom in there. We have literally just passed that PR 633 over there. So that's a good point of measure. If you are too far from it, it's going to be wonky as well. So just be careful where you measure from. But 4.2 minus expected 3.7, that gives us about 500 kilograms. So if we go to INET ref and we can then subtract that, so we'll have 65.3 which will be our gross weight for landing. Then we can select flaps 30 and the V-speed. All right, that will reset itself shortly. You know, it doesn't stay there forever. So that's just a quick way of calculating the V-speeds. If you do not feel comfortable working it out, trust me, just before top of descent, I mean, you can see there's top of descent on the screen. So just before there, all you do is you come and you select your landing VREFs. Okay, the difference between the landing speed doing the calculation and not doing the calculation but doing it at the top of descent is going to be maybe 1 or 2 knots. Okay, so it's not going to kill anybody, but just bear that in mind. Okay, right, so we can go back there. What we do need to do now is we need to quickly look here. We need to descend to 3000 and we've got 540 on our decision altitude. So what we need to do is, before we get stuck, let's do this one first. We're going to set this to 3000. All right, so that's our final approach fix at PR 542, the altitude there. I'm going to use auto brake 3 just to stop a little bit quicker. There's the slowdown. I'm going to use the speed brake to assist because we have been warned about the steep descent and we want to manage the energy in this aircraft very much. Pilots, just give me a second. I'll answer you just now. Let's just quickly run through all the setup. So we set 540 for minimums. Alright, and just for my own peace of mind, let's go check again. Okay, it's 1014. So we're going to put 1014 in standby there already. Alright, we know that we're not going to set the ILS and stuff. We're doing an RNAV approach, so we're going to keep that. I think we are done. Let's get rid of our speed brake there. We don't want to brake too much. Alright, so we're ready for the descent and I'm going to save flight number 3 quickly there. Okay, let's see. At ATA we run the APU most of the time on the ground. Most pleasant ground conditions. Yes sir, it has changed quite dramatically. A lot of airports don't want you to run the APU very long anymore. Most gates and most jetways now come with power or they have a little cart. But most are moving away to actual cable from the ground kind of a situation. So they are complaining about noise and all kinds of things about the APUs, so they don't particularly like using them for too long. Scott, are you still okay?
Can't hear you, Scott. I saw his light.
Okay. Alright, there goes the speed. We've got to keep our eye on the speed, so speed brake again. Otherwise we lose that path. I got a message from him, don't worry.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Good. Are you in training, sir?
Yes, sir.
That means I don't need to speak.
Yeah, no, you can speak, but just keep calm.
Keep calm.
Keep calm and love Nico.
Of course.
Mm. Okay, so while we are waiting for this descent to happen, you guys can see Ian has already been identified the integrated approach navigation system. So that's an option on the Zibo. It's also in the PMDG NGXU, but you have to press the approach button before that will actually show and work. We do it a bit differently here. So there it shows you that we can actually simulate a Cat 1 ILS, and then you have your localizer and your glide path. And there we go, we're slowing down a little bit more. I'm going to pull the first flap just to keep it intact, and once we get to 3000 we're also going to use the approach button to actually get the Ian to work as the ILS.
Your course is off by 1 degree.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was telling you guys mine is actually all working now, and now I see in this instance it is definitely off. Thanks, Torsten. Hello, Solar Rock. That's very interesting.
Yep.
Interesting is also that it was not indicated in yellow strike through.
Exactly. Very interesting. Matthew, I'm flying in Porto. We're busy doing a quick tutorial video that we want to download afterwards and distribute to guys. So you're welcome. And we wanted to fly in South Africa, or at least I wanted to. I'm not sure how many other guys are actually flying in South Africa for Aveo, but we had an interesting situation I needed to check out quickly. That's why we are here.
I think we're all here, Nico.
Okay, good.
Just changed my navigraph as well.
Okay, cool.
I am on 2 legs.
Right, so our legs now, recognition and all these things can come on. In fact, just as you pass 10,000 feet, you can already set them on again. I'm pulling back on my speed brake there. We don't need to pull so hard. Alright, so what usually happens is I'm going to now use my gear as well to slow down, and then I'm going to go to flaps 15. You should see a little dip in the nose because that green banana shows you we're going to overshoot the 3000 mark that we set. So we're going to miss the glide path. And so we're slowing down, using a little bit more flap. You see it's bringing it back now, and you'll see a little dip in the nose usually, and it will intercept that and give us the ability to actually intercept the glide path. Then we're going to go to standard, obviously. Behave yourself. Alright, so what I am going to do as soon as we get a little bit closer and that diamond is more closer to the glide path, I'm just going to hit the approach button.
Where is Uncle John? Put again.
No, Uncle John had to go and help somebody somewhere. He did make an apology.
I see.
Right, so I've hit the approach button, just in case we started losing our glide path there, because we got very close to that waypoint. Then you'll see the final approach course gets activated, as well as the glide path, and the aircraft will literally use this then as a Cat 1 ILS situation. Right, you can also see we've got 3000 dialed in. An ordinary LNAV, VNAV, RNAV approach, the moment you get to 3000, the aircraft would have leveled off. So if you didn't press the approach button, you would have gotten stuck. So just also, remind yourself of the difference between LNAV, VNAV versus the EN function that's added on now. So if it was an ordinary LNAV, VNAV, RNAV approach, you would have dialed in the decision altitude. Yeah, I know, it's awesome. I haven't flown it myself, but I hear everybody, including Zibo, talks about it, raving about VR, so I can just imagine. Alright, we're just doing the final landing checks, lights, ignitions, seat belts, speed brake, auto brake, everything seems fine. So, how's this for suspense, Jordan and Torsten and Scott? I can't see the runway, so I don't know if I'm aligned or not.
Same thing I had as well.
I'm guessing I'm aligned, but there's no guarantee. Woo, and there's the rain again. Alright, our go around altitude is 6,000, so I just want to dial that in quickly.
Minus 288 FPM, I guess.
I will see, Hakan.
288, don't forget.
Alright, I'm disconnecting my auto throttle. And there you see the little blue triangles that I've put on the lines just to balance my power with the throttle. Slogdog, that is in the developer's hands. It's not a Zibo issue. We are also waiting on that. There is a fix on his own TBM. It's the same guy who made the TBM, and it works very well. Okay, we disconnected the autopilot.
Beautiful alignment.
Yeah, beautiful.
200.
Yeah, I had a perfect alignment as well.
Ooh, for a moment the stream broke.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
How much was that?
Only 15 deviation.
I can't read, it's too small. What was the landing rate there? I think it was
273.
okay.
I said 288.
Alright, okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, under these conditions, this flight is not acceptable. We need to fly again.
No, the runway is wet. You have to touch down firmer.
Exactly. Thank you, Torsten, for saving my behind.
Yeah. It was a super landing, Nico.
I think so too.
Yes, and you guys that are critical, you need to remember what side your bread is buttered on.
Yep.
Yeah. So that
Well done.
takes care of the basic training. Is there any questions? Do you have questions? Are you okay? Happy?
One question.
Hakan, give us a chance, please. Scott?
Thank you. One question regarding the saved files that you were different phases of the flight you were saving.
Yeah.
Are those transferable, or are they just specifically for your
No, they are transferable. I can actually zip it up and give it to you if you want it. What happens is it saves it in the output situations folder. You'll see I'll bring it up just now. Let me just get off the runway here quickly.
Yeah, I've had those. I've done those in my own sim, obviously, but I was
Yeah.
thinking from a mechanics standpoint to be able to pull yourself into different phases of the flight that you've established here while you're watching, and then to work on different elements and phases of the flight to sharpen your skills, etc.
Yeah. You can do it. What I have found from personal experience is sometimes it's not transferable between versions. So what happens is if you and I are on the same version of the Zibo mod, then we can share them. But typically what happened now with this version I'm on, this is a non-public beta that I'm flying now. It won't work on your system because Zibo worked on it. You see, so that's the only drawback with them is what I've seen is it's got a limited lifespan and it's related to a specific version of the Zibo mod. You see,
Thank you.
but that's the only thing. All right, there was a question, Matthew. I'm not sure. I need to eat my dinner. It's actually been delivered to me, but it's ice cold. I'm gonna have to go warm it up, eat dinner. If I've got enough energy, I'll maybe come and do a circuit or two then in South Africa. We'll see. What was the other question? I said good afternoon.
Nico, thank you very much for doing this, and I'll look forward to downloading the video.
100%. I will send you guys a link when it's ready. Okay.
To the
Roger.
calculation and showing that command A business.
Yes,
Nico.
that's the one. Joystick. So there it says Command A. Physically, the command is called Command A. So you just select your button and you go and select Command A.
I'll just post the link to it now.
Thank you. Put it in Discord and I'll transfer it. I don't think you can put the link into the stream, Mac. All right,
Yeah,
then.
that's a good
Sorry.
point that you're on the screen. Sorry, is
That's
that
how you find it.
I'll show them how to find it as well, Mac. Sorry, Scott.
no? My apologies. The Discord Twitch lag is
Yeah.
hard. It's I know everybody's flight control system is unique, but what's valid to have are some of the key things. Like I see your Togo power, your Command A, your AP disconnect, some of those critical things that now what you map them to is subjective, but those are good things to know that you should have done.
Yes.
So that's a good point if you can highlight.
Okay, so the ones I have is, let's start from the top, auto throttle arm. It's a toggle switch. So when I press it once, it will arm. When I press it a second time, it will disarm. But when I press it a third time, it will arm again. And trust me, 1 or 2 flights ago, I actually screwed myself big time with that one. Live on the stream, I pressed it 3 times instead of twice. But that is the auto throttle arm. Okay, that is a good one to have. This is engaged Toga power, and the names that you guys see on the screen is exactly how Zibo created them. Mac, thank you for posting that. I see you are able to post that. It's not an actual link, it's just a descriptive. So that's fine. All right, so that's engaged Toga. Then I've got my AP disconnect, which is the little bar on the horizontal bar for the autopilot disconnect. And then I've got Command A. All of these ones are toggle switches, guys. So when you press them once or twice, remember the third time you're back to square one. Okay, so remember that. Then what I have is I've got flaps up and flaps down. And I've got pitch trim down and pitch trim up. And then this big red button, number 2 there, that puts me back into my cockpit looking forward.
Command rec.
Sorry, say again.
Number 3, command rec. What's that?
Okay, no, sorry. That is for Linda. That's for my co-pilot. So when I want to talk with her, I press a button, which is this one, and then she actually listens to me. All right. So that's just for the co-pilot. It's not a Zibo thing.
So is that act as a
It's a push to talk for the co-pilot. That's all. If you look at my
3
other
times and it's
screens.
the eject button.
Yeah. I wish. Shoot her through the roof, you know. No, but anyway, if you watch my other streams, you'll see Linda, and then this button is to switch her widget off, so it doesn't sit on my screenshots and in my face the whole time. All right. Slog dog control wheel steering is it basically turns the Boeing into an Airbus. So if you move your control column into a certain position and you switch it on, it's going to maintain that position. Basically, it gives you like a fly-by-wire situation. It's just going to continue in the direction that you steer it. You know, so that's the easiest way to explain it. The guys use it when they go through heavy turbulence, for instance, because then the autopilot can. It doesn't have to work that hard, you know. They just ride the wave. It's just to assist that. Um, all right, Mac, what was the other thing we wanted to show them? Or did we cover everything?
I think so. At one point earlier on was when you were setting up your FMC, you actually went through and reset the arrival.
Yeah, I actually didn't
Steer.
reset it, but you can call it that, I suppose, yeah?
Yeah. Which perhaps others have missed. And you know, we were on about this rogue waypoint business.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
So you took care of that by doing what
Okay.
was required to get around it anyway.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
all I've noticed, I think, Nico.
No worries. All right, let me quickly get into this.
I must admit, that business, I wasn't really paying close attention at that particular moment. When you were setting up your ILS heading or RNAV heading, you said you didn't get a discrepancy and you reckoned you should have done?
Now, what happened was in the last few flights, ever since, I would say the last 10 flights or so, or maybe even more, I haven't had a discrepancy. And the funny thing is, I was bragging about the fact to the guys earlier, go update your nav data, the discrepancy will go away. And truth Bob, look, this actual RNAV approach has got a 1 degree discrepancy. So, again, it's a Navigraph thing. 1 degree is not going to kill anybody, but it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, as long as the indications were all right. I was just thinking
Yeah.
there was a little bug that crept into Zibo. No, I forget it.
Yeah, okay. All right, so just as a matter of interest, Scott and the rest of the guys, those are the situation files. So when you, it's going to disappear now, hold on. When you go to save a flight situation, it puts it in explain 11 output situations. Those are the files. All right. And like I said, some of it sometimes work between different versions, but my version will not work with your version because Zibo worked on this. So, and it's easy enough to then reload it. We simply go back to pressing load flight number 3, and it should put us exactly back where we were just before top of descent.
Very well. Thank you very much for that clarity.
Yeah, you're welcome.
1,000 to go. 1,000 to go.
Right, so it takes a second or two to just stabilize, and then you'll see it's going to just take the plunge. Okay, one thing, guys, if you want to use this facility to restore a flight, your engines needs to be running. There's no time for you to start your engines in the air. It won't work. So please just make sure if you want to restore a flight, engines must be running.
Is that the heads-up display, the lavender-colored shield above your head?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played with that yet.
It does work. People still say it's work in progress, but
it's functional.
It's functional. It's a fair representation for, how many people actually use it.
I must be honest with you. I have close to 10,000 hours on this aircraft. I hardly ever use it. It confuses me. I don't know. It plays mind tricks with me. I don't like it at all.
I can see the applicability if you're in a real tight situation when all you need to do is see where your, where your plane is, what's the attitude of your plane, your airspeed, altitude, and you're really focused outside the cockpit and you don't have time to shift your focus. But you're not moving that fast. If you were doing Mach, 2, that'd be different maybe.
Yeah. One of the guys on the group made a comment the other day that he needs it for Cat 3. I've done plenty of Cat 3 landings in my life. I have never used this in a Cat 3 landing, never. I don't know. It's just not how I was raised. How I was taught to fly this aircraft. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe I must start using it and then get used to it. But I'm definitely not used to it at all.
I think one of the things about simmers is, which in real life you have to train yourself, is we all want to see the scenery, so we tend to try to look outside, and we forget to do our 6-pack, visuals on the instrument panel. Whereas with a HUD, it allows you to a certain extent to do both at the same time.
Yeah, and if you listen to Sasso, when he comes here and he gives us training, he says it doesn't matter what the weather is like, you always keep your eyes on the instruments until 200 feet.
Well, it's normally a case that the co-pilot calls runway visual, and the pilot will focus on the instruments, and he'll just keep glancing up to see if he can see the runway yet.
Yeah.
You're not taking in the scenery and doing the tourist bit and saying, "Oh, that looks nice."
Well, I think the scope of what this aircraft brings to the community is such that you really need to focus on taking advantage of the technical side of the offering and not the visual side as
very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, Nico will tell you I'm a technical man rather than the visual man anyway.
But fortunately for us, between all the guys that are now involved in the project, the cosmetics are being worked on, so it will look better anyway in a short while.
Outstanding job, Nico. Much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Oh, it's still, and the Zibo is still an outstanding aircraft. I don't care what anybody says at the moment. Given its freeware, a bloke has devoted his time virtually non-stop to it for over 3 years. It's a remarkable piece of kit.
Absolutely.
You want to share with us that's on the horizon, because you intimated you were in a beta right now with it. What's coming up, or what's currently to be expected?
We were working on the VNAV alt function in the descent phase. All right, so this model was the fix to a problem, and this is a C model, so it's the third model in the 15 range. So it took Zibo 3 tries to fix the one problem. I haven't spoken to him about continuing this specific testing because there's like 3 or 4 more tests we need to fly. And I prefer to have him here with me on stream so he can watch me do it and give me advice or instruction while it's happening, than for me to just go and do it on my own, because he sees things that I don't even think about, and he fixes it on the fly while I'm flying. He's fixing, and so it's all about the VNAV descent thing that this model was about.
Are you saying as far as it's tracking the VNAV?
Yeah, it was look, because the mod now supports VNAV alt or just VNAV and VNAV hold. There's literally 3 different modes it can go into. The task at hand is to make sure that each mode works correctly. So what we did was we fixed the ascending bit going up that was done, and the next phase then was the descending phase, and we've gone about halfway in that. There's, like I said, 3 or 4 more flights to fly to make sure that all 3 modes work as expected, because one of the things that I don't know if a lot of people know about this, but we deal with a lot of real world pilots and real world carriers. There are hubs out there where 60, 70 out of 100 guys fly the Zibo to keep their skills up in the real world, in real time. And one of the requirements is to make this thing usable for them to actually do it, because when they leave the PC sim and they go and get into the real sim to do their qualifying rides, they need to know what they're doing, and they've been very helpful and instrumental in setting everything in motion for Zibo to then come to the party and create this marvelous masterpiece. So that's why there's different modes, that's why there's different configurations, and why it's important to know the differences in the electronic flight bag here, the Zibo tablet, to set it up for your carrier, for what you want to do, etc. And that's the background to it all. It needs to be and wants to be the most realistic 738 that we can possibly make.
Yeah, outstanding. Do you think these modes you're referring to, the various carriers are using, are they all in the same aircraft? It's just
Yes, it's different
company
variants.
policy. Yeah.
Yeah, different
A lot
variants.
of them,
A lot of them are older models, a lot of them are newer models, and there's different firmware. Sorry, Mac, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there are different standard issues of the FCOP available, and Zibo's programming to one of the latest versions. But it's not only that. If you look at often the options list that an airline can opt into when he buys his planes, there's differences there. So it does add a lot of great variability in between different fleets of 737s.
That was my point, Mac, that it depends on which variant the
Yeah.
particular carrier purchases as to which one is going to apply to the pilots that are using these for recurrent training. So that's excellent.
Yeah.
But the standard long-time Zibo version is, if you go into the EFB, it's the VNAV on and the out one off.
Yeah.
And that's what we've all become used to. You've got to change those options if you want to fly the other variants. And that's why it's not interfered with us today at all.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Let's see what this HUD does to my brain right now, tricking my eyes and all these things. Okay, so I'm balancing my throttles. Auto throttle can come off.
Approaching 3, 5.
Oh, this is terrible weather. I'm gonna break the aircraft. No, I'm not. There's the runway. I can see the runway.
Tailwind 8 knots.
Yes, sir.
Minimums. 300.
Yo, that wind, eh? So was that a better landing, guys? Can't hear
It
you.
was 72 feet less than the last one.
Alright, cool.
4,000 feet remaining.
Alright, well, there you have it. So, Slog Dog, the Honeywell MCP was created a long time ago for the 700. I'm not sure if it's going to come to the actual Zibo mod. It will probably be a option in the level up range of aircraft. We'll have to see if Zibo actually incorporates it. Yeah, it would be nice to have the option because our Mango airline that I used to work for instance, have the Honeywell ones, not the Collins ones. So, yes, to answer you shortly, don't know when and don't know how, or however I can explain that to you.
It's definitely been requested several
Yeah,
times, Slug
yeah,
Dog, in the forum, the old forum as well.
yeah.
I'd like to
This is
summarize by saying I appreciate all this very much as someone who is much more a tactile person than a read the book and then go apply it. I found that this level of tutorial, if you will, I know people get beat up all the time for all the tutorials, but in thinking about practical application and when you need to do things, how you need to do them, enough explanation about why you're doing it to be succinct enough to not, go off on a tangent, I think is fantastic. And this is exactly what the community needs. Thank you.
Good. You're most welcome. Gents, I did notice there was a 26% FPS drop or frame drop now between me and Twitch, where it didn't have it before. I hope it wasn't too bad, and I hope that the video will look good at the end of the day.
No, it's been
Fine.
good here all the way through, Nika.
All right,
Thank you.
okay. Pleasure. Right, I'm going to park over here and then I'm going to stop this video so we do not overrun too long. Gents, and if there are any ladies, thank you for watching. I'll continue talking with you on Discord. Let me just stop this stream quickly. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers,
Bye.
Nico.
On runway